All right, guys, so let me give you an update of where I'm at. Went out and ran a test run when I had the seat attached to the frame to hold the frame down. Problem was, I could only get 5.5 miles per hour. But if I slid forward and sat down on the floor, I could get a little over 6. So I disconnected the seat, and I actually took the crossbar, the cross member that comes with it for the seat, and I put it under the pontoons, put it across, and I actually screwed it to the frame. And I went with the frame going back to where my first line is at the edge of the foam, because that's where I got the best performance in the fore and aft. Then we played with the up and down trim on the motor like you can do with the Torqeedo by trimming this collar, but I almost got the best performance with it all the way in the down position. So what we're going to do now is we're going to fix the steering problem that I had, and then we're going to go back out and test this to see if, with the motor pushed back a little bit and it playing with the up and down, and then maybe even playing with the trim, we can get a little bit better performance. The number one thing that I think I need to do to accomplish that is to move the load being me. So I disconnected the seat so that I can scoot the seat fore and aft, and then to accomplish that, like I said, I put this cross member across, screwed it down, and also attached it underneath these pontoons along with the mount that Greg built. Now Greg is on his way with the new mount, and we're either going to get one more round of testing in, or he may show up actually any minute now where we'll change it out. I'll strap the battery back down as soon as it finishes charging. But let me show you what I'm working on with the steering. So biggest problem I've had so far is with the steering. I'd have my feet perfectly in place, but I constantly kept knocking this piece over. All right, we are starting to move. I am underway for the first test of the, all right, well, there's my first issue. The idea was to have something temporary. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this part off. I'm gonna take this piece apart since it's all put together. I'm gonna move it over to this plate. Now you're gonna ask yourself, what the heck is that plate? Well, it just so happens that through my partnership with DZ, the truck accessory people, I had one of these boards that mounts in the back of my truck to give me that second tier for overlanding. So I pulled it out, and it just so happens that it almost works out perfectly. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna measure and tape this off to get this centered, but instead of gluing this thing down, I'm just gonna hard mount the Mighty Mount XL directly to this. Now, long term, you're probably asking yourself, what in the hell are you mounting a plate to an inflatable for when you could just make permanent steering? So here's my permanent steering solution long term. I'm actually, well, like I said, Greg is showing up with goodies. So let me finish this point about the steering, and then we'll get into what he brought. Come on in, man. So it's almost like we planned this or something. So the long-term goal is I will take one of these Mighty Mount plates and I'll mount it in the front and the back of the boat. I'll take a Yak Attack lock and load, put it into that Mighty Mount. Actually, let me just build it while we're talking. So what we'll do is we'll take this Yak Attack lock and load. At least this is how I have it worked out in my mind right now, as far as like the best solution. And we've done this in the past, and I think this is pretty similar to what Jeff Little does for his inflatable. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna mount this dude like so, just like that. And then what we'll do is we'll take the standard lock and load and we'll set it up to where we take it apart, and then we put the 90-degree mount from Yak Attack and Frankenstein this all together, then glue it to one of these glue pads, or have one of these glue pads glued down to where now you can attach your steering, whether it's like the Wizard steering, Select steering, or even the new steering that's coming from Ketch. So that's the long-term solution. So here's the short-term solution. The short-term solution is we're going to take this plate, we'll take this Mighty Mount XL, we're going to mount it to the center of this plate, then I'm going to attach my steering to this. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these dots. I've already wiped this down with alcohol, and if it wasn't late on a Sunday afternoon and Ace Hardware was open, I'd go find me a rubber stopper that would fit right in that hole. Now I'd screw it from the other side so that when I flipped it over, those rubber pieces would grip the deck. Because again, we're testing this out on the Fish Up 1210 from the folks at at Sea Eagle, but the idea is that we're having this test rig built so that when we get into the vetted Mark 1 or Frog Mark 1, if we decide to go with that name, we have this steering apparatus already built up. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take these dudes, I'm gonna mount them on here just like this, and then when I flip it over, that'll help grip it. But then I leave these holes open so that I can put those rubber feet on it and then flip it over and use it the other way. So I'm gonna get this measured out, get this plate mounted to the center of here so it's a more permanent mount. But now I gotta figure out what Knucklehead has brought over. So let's talk to Greg. What you got, man?
Got the
Bruh. So the idea behind this one is we have the ability to have a shim that goes this way that's a little thinner, a shim that goes this way that's a little thicker, and then a shim that goes this way that's a little thinner than that, right?
Right.
And then what he did is he put these diamond patterns in it so that he could create more strength, because if you notice in the first iteration, when I tighten this thing down, it squats it pretty good. So now it's got like a slight bit more reinforcement and rigidity. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna create another crossbar like this that goes up here, that we can have two of these attached to this rig, so that when I start testing the vetted Mark 1, I've got the ability to trim this fore and aft, and I don't have to, jerry rig using the seat cross mount. I'll have two of these with two crossbars that tie into these mounts that will allow me to use two of these to test the rig and make micro adjustments until I get it dialed in just right. Hey, I ran it yesterday, bro. The only problem was the steering kept falling over. I talked to John at Sea Eagle yesterday, and he said he will start working on a design for a pontoon like this that's about 22 inches wide, and it fits across there, and then we'll move these D-rings over so that on the vetted boat, we can actually take the crossbar, put it on here and use D-ring to D-ring and cinch it across. So you can sit on that crossbar, you can stand on that crossbar for like flats fishing or like sight casting. But you know the seat back I was showing you on the full inflatable seat design we're making? You can also have two D-rings on the back, and you can attach the seat back to it so that you can hook it to a D-ring up here, so you can have the crossbar with a seat back folded over, or this seat can mount up on top of it. It's gonna be pretty slick when it's all said and done, but well, what else did you bring? I'll let you explain it.
Oh, well, we had talked about locking these.
Let me pop this off so I can.
Locking these tubes together, so I printed a little spacer in there that basically gives you the grip so that now these no longer slide, they're basically fixed.
Let me show you these guys what happened real quick. So let me show you guys what was the impetus for this. So the other day, Greg was over here when he delivered that part, and I was showing him my little piggyback rod holder design, which isn't really that practical. He said, yeah, dude, I thought about it. Why don't you just take two ARs and flip them around from each other and get a little bit longer bolt? And when he said that, I didn't have a long enough bolt in my arsenal at the time, but I can envision it. So you probably weren't even on the way. You weren't even home yet by the time I texted you the picture, right? I literally jumped in the truck, headed straight to Ace Hardware, got a carriage bolt that was long enough, put it through there, texted him the picture, and he was like, looks good. But if you look at this thing, it's a little off center. So I was like, hey man, what if you made a little spacer bar that went in between here? You could screw it in from one side here and from the other side here. And the idea I was thinking of was like, you got this little orange indicator button. We make it out of the orange stuff so it sticks out. Greg's like, I got a better idea. What if I just make a spacer that goes in there that locks it in place? So there we go. And now it's locked in place. So the idea behind this is you can have two rod holders that are slightly offset a little bit, so when you put them in there, the handles don't tangle, but you don't have to have as many mounting spaces, because that's one of the limitations you have with inflatables is the amount of space that you have, or you have to mount glue-on pads to add track. So if you can get two things in one place, and honestly, I think I'm going to move this over to my XTR, my PWR, pretty much everything. I think that right there, like the double banger AR mount is sick. So what did you do? Did you just castellate it on? You want to take it apart and show it to him?
Yeah, sure.
This is what happens around here a lot. Squirrel! We just off on a different tangent. By the way, while he's doing that, this is Greg. His company is 3dyak.com. So if you're looking for anchor wizard mounts, seat risers, what are some of the other popular
rod
products?
stagers, foot pegs for the crescents. We've got stuff for the catch boards. We try to make just about anything for everything.
Everything that fills the gap from something that's not readily available. All right, so show them what you did.
So basically, if you look at the rod holder right here, it's keyed. So when you put this just up against it without the spacer in there, there's nothing to really lock in the mesh of the rod holder. So I printed basically a female that'll mesh in with that, and then it's got the male parts that lock into the rod holder. So when you put those together, it locks them in so you don't have that play that was in there before. Because before, if you just put that on there and tighten it up, you could force them apart pretty easy, slide them around. But now this piece right here just kind of keys them in.
Hold it up, like, toward me. We can still talk about it.
But yeah.
I threw the mic on Greg here so that while I work on the steering, he can actually explain to you guys the rest of the stuff that he brought. So Greg, give him a rundown of everything else you brought.
Okay. The other day, Austin mentioned that he was looking for, or had an idea for me to make some spacers for the short stack. So we made up a couple that line up with the Gridfinity layout on the short stack. So we're going to see if that works. And I made them so that they go halfway across, so that you can put any configuration that you want to instead of making one that's fit exactly to the short stack. You can use these with a 13 or 16 inch depending on how you lay them out. And then they also mentioned wanting a mount for the Eagle Eye 9. So went into CAD and basically worked on that a little bit. This one works for 25 millimeter poles, 1 inch poles pretty much, and gonna be making one for the Railblazer. I think it's a 32 millimeter, so we're gonna be working on that and testing that. And then you've already seen the motor mount brace and the spacer for the rod tubes and whatever else Chad throws at me, or Austin. They seem to be full of unlimited ideas, so they send me home with homework about every time I leave from here. But that's pretty much it for now.
All right, so just in case you're wondering, I just put a tiny little pilot hole in there to mark the location. Now I'm going to take this in the shop, because the last thing you want to do is drill through your plate into your inflatable. Well, if you drill through it, it will no longer be an inflatable. So I'm going to run this in the shop, set this up, kind of marked all my dimensions, and then I'm going to go mount the plate, and I'll be right back. Plus I need to mount it on the other side, because I just realized I put my, yeah, so anyway, this is the, yeah, so I either got to put these on the other side as well, or I got to flip this over. And anyway, I'm gonna go fix it and I'll be right back. All right, I'm gonna show you a little trick when it comes to mounting these Mighty Mount XLs, or pretty much anything in a fishing kayak, especially when you're drilling into plastic. I see folks a lot of times put something on there like a rod holder, and then when they put the drill in, they have to shy away from it, so they end up drilling the holes at an angle. And then when you drill all 4 holes at an angle, it makes it very difficult to put the other screw in there. And that might seem like common sense, but as we're doing this, we're going to talk about a lot of stuff. So what I did is I drilled the first hole, tapped it in place, moved it out of the way, and then I just used one of the screws to tap the other 3 holes. Then I can swing it back around, line it up, and screw it down. So I also had to flip it over and kind of relay it out, because like a dummy, I put the holes on the wrong side during the process. But figured I'd redeem myself by sharing a tip on some other dumb stuff that I've done over the years that you don't have to repeat. I've seen so many people, especially taking a little bit longer track and drilling like 8 holes, and by the time you get to the end, the last 3 holes don't line up, and you go, man, that doesn't make any sense. So drill the holes kind of like you're tightening up your lug nuts on a truck. Drill one, drill the opposite one, put the hardware in, drill the next one, because sometimes you're actually flexing the boat as you go as well. So make sure you don't drill all the holes and then go back and try to line the screws up, because eventually 1 or more of the holes ain't gonna line up properly. All right, guys, so we got the plate mounted up, got the steering system put back on top of there. After I make sure that this concept is gonna work, I'll actually probably take some of the traction pad stuff and put it on here to make it a little bit more comfortable. I'll probably even do the same thing, put some type of foam sleeve or something over this to make it a little bit more comfortable, dial this in a little bit more. But right now, the way it'll work is I can move this plate fore and aft. I can then make big adjustments by just rolling this over, letting it out, or rolling it back over to bring it in.
Idiot.
We're about to throw this in the water and go have a conversation. I get fed up with these morons that launch right here, and they only got a little 50-yard idle out to the river, but they got to get on it. They got to get on it like a dumbass. So I'm going to write him a little sticky note and stick it on his car. And anyway, we'll have a conversation later. I'm going to have to big brother or pawpaw him a little bit. Anyway, so back to the boat. got the plate, which gives us some adjustability this way. One of the things that I think I'll do long term is that when we get the new boat in, I'll take these mounts and I'll line them up to where we can actually take a cord and go through there and cinch it down to where we make it nice and solid. And then we'll have a little bit more of a solid base. But again, I would use this configuration if I was going to make a permanent steering solution. But because we're testing this boat, then we're going to move over and test a couple of other boats. Like I'm going to put this on the Fat Cat. I'm also going to put this on the new vetted prototype. By the way, let me show you guys a little sneak peek. So John from Sea Eagle sent me a picture of the prototype. Now I'm going to be honest with you. He said to me, hey, does it matter what color we make it? I was like, no, dude, it's just a prototype. It doesn't matter. But he sent me the prototype, and I was like, maybe I should have said something about the color, because there's the first prototype. And if you were along for the ride with the PFD prototype, the first one is going to be a little bit rudimentary, and it's going to be a little bit ugly. But that thing is extra ugly because of the colors. So again, we're going to test it. Right now, all of the fittings are being glued up on it, and this thing will be in the mail. We'll be able to get it on the water within the next week and a half to 2 weeks. But this is the ultimate goal of a lot of this. But it was a real big happy accident that I actually really liked this, this Sea Eagle. And so I'm going to get this thing out on the water again, be able to move the seat back and forth, be able to play around with the throttle mount, and we're going to go out there and see if we can't get a little bit better speed, performance. First thing I'm going to do is add a little air back to this thing, because I actually dropped the air down a little bit so that it wouldn't get... I dropped the air down a little bit so it wouldn't kind of get overinflated, because my buddy Jameson Redding, who has also been doing a lot of prototyping and testing and inflatables, said that, you know, you got to leave a little bit of lower PSI when it's sitting out in the sun. I actually talked to the owner of Sea Eagle, and he said, nah, if you do the basic math of thermodynamics and expansion, and he mentioned kelvins and joules and some other stuff, he said, it really doesn't matter. So I'll trust him. I'm going to pump this thing back up to the max pressure so it's as stiff as it can possibly be, which means it planes as good as it can, planes as well as it can. Anyway, it's going to plane good, and we're going to get her out on the water and see how she works out. So if you read this thing right here, it says you can get 1 bar or 15 PSI. And there's an outer ring that's got bars and an inner ring that's got PSI. So right now we're at 0.8. That's 1.2. That'll be 1 bar and 15 PSI. So we're going to get her pumped up there. That ain't super hard, but it ain't easy either. That's why I ordered the Mega Pump from Sea Eagle. Pumping that whole thing up is harder than being stupid in America today. Can you see the sweat? I'm sweating. All right, so now we're going to take this thing off the stand, run it down to the water, go get some wind in our face.